Welcome viewers and subscribers to the very last episode of this 1977 GS750 Suzuki restoration project that's been going for about 18 months now. Coming to a close in this episode, what we'll do is the first start after installing the headers and exhaust pipes, and do a bit of tuning in the carburetors just to see how the mixture's going. Take it for a test ride, and then later on in the video I'm just going to go back over some of the issues that we faced doing the restoration, some of the things that we've learned, and some of the vendors of various parts, etc., that have helped me put this bike back together. So let's get on with it. Okay, so headers are on, tightened up, torqued up, clamped into the collectors on the new silencers, put some fuel in, put the plugs in and gapped them, put it on reserve. So this engine hasn't, it's now August, this engine hasn't run since, I don't know, February I think, something like that. So let's see if we can get it to start and see how we go. Choke. Okay, well that certainly started very easy, considering it hasn't been run for 6 months or so. Looks like the headers into the collectors on the silencers are leaking, so I will try to tighten them up, but might need to put some high temperature silicone on those to seal that up, otherwise we'll be popping and banging, etc. But at least it's running, seems to be running on all four, so yeah, that's good. Okay, so now that the headers are on, I did have to seal up the pipes a bit with some high temperature silicone to seal in between where the headers go into the collectors on the pipes. So that's all running, bike is running. Now time for a bit of tuning. So I have already done the carburetor synchronization using this synchronization kit. So basically what we do is we using these little various attachments, basically take this cap screw out there and replace it with this on all four, and then connect up the hoses up to the vacuum gauges, and then run the bike in, and then slowly adjust each of the carburetors so that they're all reading the same. So the adjustments on these carburetors are underneath these covers here, so just a small locking screw and an adjustment screw just to slightly adjust it. So they were pretty close, but a couple of little adjustments to be made. What I've now moved on to is adjustments for the mixture setting, which I think was pretty close. Basically had 1.5 turns out on this pilot air screw, and then underneath here is the pilot fuel screw. So that was about 1.5 out as well. Bought one of these Gunson color tunes, So using that now. So basically what you do is you pull the spark plug out, put the Gunson plug replicator in and connect it up, and then as you run the bike you can actually see the colour of the combustion chamber in there, so you should be looking for a nice bright blue to get the mixture correct, and adjust that by adjusting the pilot fuel screw underneath there. So let's have a go at that. So here we have the bike idling, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's sort of a bluish tinge on cylinder 1 most of the time, so I think that's pretty close. Obviously I will give the bike a bit of a run. I haven't actually ridden it anywhere yet, so I might do some initial adjustments of these, then take it for a quick ride, and then come back and double check again. So just finished tuning all 4, which worked out okay. Number 3 was the one that I was a bit worried about, because the pilot fuel screw had been screwed in tight by somebody at some point, so it was very hard to find out where the jet actually seated and then back it off a number of turns, so it always felt a bit weird. But yeah, I had to back that out a little bit because it was actually I had to turn it in a little bit because it was a bit rich. So to get underneath there, I made this little tool, basically just a little bit of tubing on a flat screwdriver fitting, and it has to fit up underneath there to get to those pilot jets, which are easy on the outside to carburetors, but on the inside it's difficult to get to, but managed to get in there. So all 4 are tuned now, so I might take it for a quick ride and see how it performs. So when I first considered buying this project, I did a bit of research, because since it was an import into Australia from the US, it had never been registered in Australia. So the story I heard was that I had to take it to a registered vehicle inspector, and they would check that it complied with the standards of the day back in 1977, so things like blinker sizes and kilometre speedo, etc., and do a check for me. And they also said that if it didn't have the original exhaust, then they would have to do a sound check on it to see that it complied. So that's what I thought I had to do. Anyway, once I'd finished the bike, I rang a local vehicle inspector and started to organise to get the bike taken down there. Then he basically said, well, you know, how old is it? I said it was 1977, and he informed me that you know, vehicles before 1980 didn't have a VIN number, which is required currently. The VIN number was actually the chassis number. So, and then when I said I was putting it on historic registration, which is a scheme here in New South Wales, where any vehicle older than 30 years, you can register it cheaper as long as you're a member of a club, and you can ride or drive the vehicle up to 60 days a year. So he basically said, well, whoever does your vehicle checks as part of the club, as part of that historic rego, they can do a vehicle check, and that's all I need. So that was good news. So I contacted my local guy Paul, who does the checks on my Katana, and took it over to him, and he had it checked, and I had the paperwork, and it was officially registered that afternoon. So that made things much easier and much simpler, and so now it's a fully registered and a legal vehicle. So that was great. All right, so headers are on, carburetors have been synchronized. I've used the colour tune to get the mixture right on the carburetors. And yeah, it's about time to take this bike for a bit of a test ride and see how it actually rides and handles and stocks. Let's give it a whirl. Okay, so all good for a 43-year-old bike. It's handling and driving quite well, so I'm happy with that. It's probably in better condition than I am. So this may be the last video, but we'll see if there's any further adventures for this bike. Cheers. So for this last episode, let's go over some of the issues that I faced over the last 18 months and 20 episodes, and things that issues I came across and had to repair. Starting with episode 1 with the fuel tank that needed to be cleaned out and sealed correctly so that we could use it. Episode 2 was trying to get the paint colour to match what I thought was the correct sort of sky blue. And also the pinstripes, that the blue in the pinstripe was the wrong shade of blue, so that needed to be lightened up as well before we painted over it. Episode 3, we started to discover some of the engine issues with no compression in some of the cylinders. The rear timing chain guide had failed, and then even just getting the barrels off the engine, which was stuck solid because of rust in the hole. So that took about a week to clear that out and get that off so we could have a good look. Episode 4 was where we discovered that all the exhaust valves had actually bent, so obviously the timing chain had slipped. Could have been much worse, so it wasn't too bad. We managed to find some aftermarket new old stock exhaust valves to change. Episode 4 was also fixing that broken side cover, so rather than buy a new one or a second-hand one, just did some repairs on that. Episode 4 was also when the replacement chain guard arrived, and turns out the guy had sent me the wrong one, so he'd sent mine to somebody else and sent the wrong one to me, so that had to be sent all the way back to Canada to get replaced. Episode 5, putting the engine back together. One of the cam cover bolts just snapped without any pressure on it at all, so we had to replace that. Episode 6 was the fuel petcock issues, trying to get one that actually turned on when it was supposed to and turn off when it wasn't supposed to. So that was interesting, eventually going back to pretty much mostly the original with a few bits and pieces from the kit. Then carburetor issues with float levels all over the place, lots of cleaning and adjusting to be done, working out where the air pilot and fuel pilot screws should be as a start, etc. So that was fun. Episode 7, just trying to get the engine running better, including changing the O-rings on the small manifolds that the carburetor is connecting to. Episode 8 was, the fun times trying to get the engine out of the frame by myself. Lots of messing around there, but eventually able to pull the frame over the top of the engine. Episode 9, repairing the side stand, the little hook that comes out from the side stand so you can put it down with your foot, replacing that with a bit of welding skills. Also honing the cylinders and changing the rings, which I probably should have done first time I had the engine apart, but because of the low compression, I decided to do that once the engine was out. Getting the barrel back on with 4 pistons and 4 sets of rings, that's a hard job to do by yourself, but I came up with a few little tricks and tools to help me there. Episode 10 was all about cleaning up the engine, getting all the grease off and soda blasting it. Episode 11 was repairing the instruments and also the instrument panel restoration, so changing the speedo over to kilometres and making it back to look as close to new as possible, and also the switch blocks, the left and right switch blocks, and the little trick about how you get the colour into those the little nameplates on each of the switches. Episode 12 was polishing parts of the engine and also painting parts of the engine to make it look nice and new. Replacing the steering head bearings for tapered ones, which is a fairly normal thing to do. Episode 13, replacing the rear shocks and using a trick I learnt off the net around making your own spring compressor to pull those things apart. Also replacing the rear spoke that was missing from the rear wheel, which meant I had to take the tyre off and putting that back on without pinching the tube a few times. That was fun. And then balancing the wheels at home just with a little jig I made. Episode 14 was the all-round brakes, front master cylinder issues, getting that the new little container back on. Also, episode 14 was the rear mudguard repair for that little broken corner. So that worked out really nicely. And then episode 14 was also when the brand new front mudguard arrived, nice and shiny, so that was good. And then restoring the airbox and the air filter as well. Episode 15 was the fixing the wiring harness that had been butchered by somebody in previous years. So basically started from one end and worked my way through to the other end, of replacing connectors and fixing cuts and things like that. Episode 15 was also when I finally discovered that the hand grips that I'd got from Partzilla were completely different on the left and right, so I had to get some aftermarket ones as well to fix that, so that looked right. Also, that was the episode where I found that the throttle cable that I'd received from Partzilla was the little right-angle curved bracket that goes into the throttle wouldn't fit, and also the length of the throttle cable was slightly wrong, so I had to pull that apart and adjust that. Also replaced the rear brake lines, all the brake lines, but the rear metal brake line, because of the fittings that I got for the new connectors. Episode 16 was trying to fix some of the paint issues that I saw on the petrol tank, around some bubbles underneath the tank. I think I fixed that. I'm not exactly sure that's not going to pop up again, so we'll see how that proceeds. And then also episode 16 was the seat pan, which was completely rusted, so I had to get a new one of those from a company in Vietnam, as it turns out. Episode 17 was buffing up the new paint to make it look all shiny, so that worked out well. And then basically bleeding the brakes, putting the new pads etc. in, and reattaching that master cylinder bowl, because that was causing some issues as well. Episode 18 was when the silencers finally arrived from Italy, so that was exciting, and fitting those, it just needed a slight file of one of the holes, and that fitted well. And then also creating the templates for the headers that I sent off down to down to Verrex in Tasmania to get them built. And then episode 19 was the headers arriving and fitting those. So that's where we got up to before this episode, this final episode. So some of the companies that I've used over this time is, obviously Partzilla is a great source for getting parts for these old bikes. Occasionally they make a few issues, but mostly they're a very good service. I also got some parts from Mick Suzuki here in Victoria. Obviously lots of parts from eBay. AAJ Automotive Paints here in Punchbowl in Sydney for mixing the paint for me. KCB Blast and Coat at Greenacre did all the sandblasting and the powder coating, did a fantastic job as usual. Lots of nuts and bolts and things from Mr. Stainless in Drummoyne in Sydney. Ash's Spokes and Wheels in Queensland was the guy who made a new spoke for me for the back wheel, just a single spoke, so that was great to find out. A few bits and pieces from MX Store in Queensland, and Kenmar Motorcycle Accessories in Thornley, which is where I got all the braided brake lines and fittings and banjos, etc. Brisbane Motorcycles is where I got the new hand grips. Texavina is the company in Vietnam that made the new seat pan. Marving in Italy is where I got the silencers from through Wiimoto. And then also Verrex Exhaust down in Tasmania, who did a fantastic job making those headers for me. So that's pretty much a recap of the whole project. If you want to go back and have a look at any of those episodes, then feel free. So that's it. It's finished. Episode 20 finished. The whole project finished. The bike is now completed. I think I probably need to do the fork oil, but nothing major. The bike is registered and legal. I've already taken it on a couple of trips. I've probably done maybe 300 to 400 kilometres on it already with no problem at all. So that's all good news. So yeah, it's been a great project. I've learnt a lot. Hopefully I've helped a few people out with some of the questions, and keep those questions coming, that's fine. So yeah, what's next? I don't know. I'd like doing projects like this, restoring something, although finding bikes that haven't been restored is becoming more and more difficult. I obviously like my big 4-cylinder Suzukis, and so the options there are running out, as I have 3 of them already. But who knows, I'll find something to do. Moving out of the big smoke, moving out of Sydney, and hopefully setting up a big shed where I can have a larger workshop to do projects like this. But don't know when that will be or what the projects will be, but looking forward to it. Those of you with a keen eye might have noticed that the photo at the start and the end of this video is actually photos of this bike rather than the stock photos that I found on the internet all those months ago and have been used in every other episode. So now that it's finished, I might as well use the photos of this bike. Thanks very much to those people who've watched. Thanks again to those subscribers, and thanks for the questions and the support, and keep watching. If you like blues music, then there'll probably be some more stuff coming up there. If you like these sorts of projects, then I'm not sure when the next project will be, but there'll be something popping up there at some stage. Yeah, thanks again for watching, and hope you enjoyed the series, and yeah, get onto your own project. It's good fun. So thanks again, and see you on the next project, whatever that is.